All right, looks like we are live, everybody. Welcome in to Fifth Quarter Extra. I'm Simone Eli, Gerhard Mathangani. We just got off the set a few minutes ago. It's been a very exciting week 2 of the high school football season, guys, and feels like this night just absolutely flies by, and then we try to get on the air as quick as possible, and we have several highlights to get to. Gerhard, it's been a fun week, and it didn't take us very long to get into region play and to see some pretty impressive battles when it comes to rivalries as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think what we got this week is a little bit more of a sample size for a lot of these teams. I think last week we saw what some of these teams might look like. Maybe some of the guys that have really stepped up during spring practice. And then I think you saw that next step this time around. And maybe some of the younger guys that did not get much playing time last year kind of settled into their roles now. This time and this year. So I'm really interested to see how the season unfolds, but week 2 gives us just more information going into the year.
Yeah, guys, our game of the week, none other than the battle for the cannon, of course, McGill, Tulin, and Murphy. And you were out at Ladd for this one, G. This is a very historic rivalry, but it's been a one-sided rivalry lately.
It certainly has. Here recently, 9 in a row. You might have saw that on the run-through sign from McGill, reminding their cross-street brethren from Murphy that they've won 9 in a row, looking for that 10th one. But the Murphy defense really stepped up big there. That was a huge interception to start this football game. And then it's Andrew Murchison. This is a second-year quarterback into that David Faulkner system. Coach Faulkner really likes the way that he's
Always
handled things.
Yep,
exactly.
Absolutely, going into week 2.
Way more comfortable.
I guess year 2 and week 2, I should say.
Right. It kind of worked out both. And the defense was really big. You saw a play earlier. Here's another big sack by Mitchell Adams. But the reason why that was really big is because it set up Murphy on a punt. And this punt was blocked here, one of our top play nominees. And nice punt return here, or block on the punt return. It is Brandon Gibson in for the touchdown. It's 13-0. But I think that play really, you saw the momentum really shift on that punt block. And that was all she wrote there. Is McGill Tulin will go on to win it by final score 32-6.
And, of course, here is the celebration, the battle for the cannon. If we can get this one pulled up. All right, well, we'll get it pulled up in a minute, Gerhard. But obviously, we know the battle for the cannon. What it's all about is getting to paint the cannon.
Yeah.
And they don't paint the cannon actually in Midtown Mobile anymore, which is, not much for the unhappiness to several folks. But they nonetheless paint a cannon, I should say. And here it is.
10 years in a row. Here they are. Going back at it, they've had to remix this the last 2 years now. They bought their own cannon for those that are confused. Who might?
This is on the campus. This is our photographer went out to McGill Tulin High, like the actual Catholic high school, and this is in the softball field or somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's the softball
they set them
field.
up. So yeah.
Yeah, they had to get creative here over the last 2 years, where they paint the cannon. Obviously, there's the city ordinances. They can't do the one in Midtown Mobile, but still finding ways to be a part of that historic tradition.
Yes, absolutely. And as we know, because of the size of Class 6A Region 1, guys, everyone plays in region very quickly. So, of course, that was a 6A game. McGill Tulin goes to 1-0 in that game. And then another game that we knew was going to have huge implications, at least not only right now early in the year, but we could see 9 weeks from now, is Spanish Fort and Theodore. This is a game that over the last couple of years has really determined who is going to be that team that's there at the end. Could be the 3 and the 4, some rendition of what that looks like. And in a completely stacked, really the SEC of high school football region, so to speak, this game was going to matter a lot. And, it went down to the wire, naturally, of course. And Theodore looking to bounce back in this game because they lost in week 1 to Baker, a game that, obviously you can come back from that. That's there's not region implications with that and all that comes with everything. But so Steve Mask company finally get on the board here after a scoreless first quarter, and then it was 7-0. Spanish Fort went to work, and they kind of chipped away. It seemed like I'm not at the game. Our photographers are at the game, doing a great job, of course. But you see here, it goes to 7-3 is the score at the time in this game, and eventually Spanish Fort is going to win this game. 24-21 was the final from Theodore, and the overtime game as well. And you have to believe that Spanish Fort is feeling really, really high about life right now, whereas Theodore is kind of wanting to go back to the drawing board and see what needs to happen for week 3.
Right, but you could tell they feel like they're pretty close. I mean, last week, obviously, that great game against Baker. Baker ended up winning the game, but I think a lot of people took away from that game that maybe these two teams were a little further apart than this game actually showed. I think a lot of people thought that maybe Spanish Fort will go in there and maybe win by a couple of touchdowns, but hats off to Steve Mask and company being able to really put up a great fight. And then last week with Spanish Fort getting that big win over Fairhope, maybe that hangover effect, so to speak, about week 1 going into week 2, maybe taking that win a little bit, not for granted, but obviously but just a little bit lightly. But they did not, and you saw the way they fought, and they were able to pull away the win.
Yeah, no doubt. So obviously, Spanish Fort goes to 1-0 into the region. McGill 1-0 in the region. Another huge battle in this region, St. Paul's and Baldwin County. This one out at Baldwin County, and a lot of excitement around for the Tigers with a new head coach, but St. Paul's wanting to stay perfect on the year after sneaking by UMS.
Yeah, that's right. And this is, I think, 2 teams to me that can show their improvement, because these are 2 teams that, in my opinion, they went in last year, obviously had a really strong season last year, but they had a bunch of players step up this year, and these are guys that can take that next step. Guys like Tank Jones and guys like Tyler Mittens, you saw her earlier. This is a great play here. We slowed it down for you in real time, and it's caught by Tredarius French for the touchdown, and Baldwin County led it 7-3 at that point. However, St. Paul is their huge defensive star, one of the best defensive players in America. Tank Jones comes up with a huge play on defense, setting up the huge play on offense. He runs it into the end zone for the touchdown, and St. Paul's will win it by the exact same score as the Spanish Fort Theodore game, 24-21.
24-21, and that's really the difference I think that you're going to see in those teams that are right there for the 3, the 4, the 5 seed in the region. We're just talking a few points going to be the difference in those in who's going to be there, who's going to be the top 4 seeds going to the playoffs come November, December.
I want to do the calculations at the end of the year. This is a game that we'll play early on, but we'll do at the end of the year to see just how many points teams are, not games, but points teams are away from a playoff berth, because I do think that those margins will be razor thin going into the playoffs. And these 2 games showed it to you, 2 3-point ball games there.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're just tuning in, this is 5th Quarter Extra. Gerhard Mathangani, Simone Eli joining you as we really recap week 2 of the high school football season. So far, we've talked about our game of the week, the battle for the Cannon. McGill wins it for a 10th straight year. I think Murphy looked, improved in spots, but Justin Hanna still trying to get his system, get his guys in place, what it is that he really wants to see. Spanish Fort beats Theodore in overtime. St. Paul's beats Baldwin County. Our final game in Class 6A was Blunt and Saraland, and of course the Saraland Spartans, #1 team in the state for good reason, and Blunt with some self-inflicted wounds here early on.
Yes, Saraland will do that to you, and they do it to a lot of teams over the years, and they got a big win over Jackson last week, and the question is, how would those teams respond? And it's not just how the teams respond after losses, but also after wins. And Saraland, they were really ready to play from Jump Street, both defensively and offensively, and got a big play here from the defense.
Yeah, and the offense going to be right, and this right here made it 28-0 in the first quarter, and then KJ Lacey and Dylan Alfred doing their thing right here. Check this out: the Texas commit hooking up with the Ole Miss commit in the end zone, and kind of reminiscent of one Ryan Williams a little bit, some plays like that. And so Saraland absolutely rolled tonight. I think it was 700-6 or something. I mean, it was 59-6, but nonetheless, I mean, Saraland got it done. They're showing why they are the muscle that they are, why they are, they've been 28-2 in 2 years. Just beat Jackson, the #1 team ranked in 4A. And so it doesn't look like there's much drop-off there, despite having graduated some very talented guys, including Ryan Williams.
Yeah, when you mentioned Ryan Williams, as far as the top target for KJ Lacey, that was the deal last year. I think that we're finding kind of 2 marquee targets for KJ Lacey going into this season. You mentioned Dylan Alfred, and also C.D. Gill last week also had a huge game. Both those guys
3 touchdowns last week for him?
That's right. Yeah, both those guys had big plays, big touchdowns. So they're getting it done a little bit differently than they did when #1 was in the uniform there with the Spartans. However, they're still getting it done 2-0 to start the season.
Still getting it done. Absolutely. All right, 6A wasn't the only classification that was in region today. Also, Alma Bryant at Baker, as Baker looks to start 2-0 on the year under new head coach Juan Johnson. Alma Bryant, their first game of the season. And listen, early on, Bryant's defense hung tough. I was in there. I was at this game. Full disclosure, my husband's the head coach at Alma Bryant. So watched this game for a hot second. And then Juan Johnson and the Hornets went to work, got in the end zone right there. And, again, you could tell that Alma Bryant's offense still trying to get it going with a freshman quarterback.
Right.
But there you see defense holding strong for a little while, but eventually when you're on the field as much as you are, Baker's going to get going offensively. Check out this play, Gerhard. As you know, this is one of our top plays of the week. Unbelievable. Because I have the ability, I'm going to do a little bit of rewinding here because this is worth showing again. And check out Tate Graham connecting with Christian White. I'm not sure which more impressive, the pass because he put it only where he could catch it, or the catch because he caught it only where he could catch it.
If you could rewind that one more time and watch there's a defensive player for Baker or for Alma Bryant that is in position to tip the ball, but as you mentioned, it just goes right over that outstretched hand. It's huge, perfect pass right there. Yeah, that's high points the football.
Absolutely. So that's one of our Cart Doctor plays of the weeks that you can vote on over on our website. But Baker improves to 2-0 on the year with the win over Alma Bryant, and then last week win over Theodore. They're 1-0 in region play. And listen, man, Juan Johnson, you could see he's installing that hurry-up offense. They got on the ball very quickly, something that you just don't really see. You see it a lot in the Birmingham area schools. He was at Hewitt-Trustville. They ran that unbelievably well. And you can tell he's trying to integrate that system here as well. Yeah,
and he did it full throttle. It's not going to be a kind of a slow process. He wanted to dive in head first. Yep. And that's what he told us during the spring. He wanted to install that full offense. He wanted to look like the way that they were running that fast.
A lot of coaches will say this is what they want to do. This is what they're going. Especially coaches who are getting their first head coaching opportunity, and then you see them dial it back a little bit, like, okay, all right. That was a lofty goal. This isn't going to happen. But kudos to Juan Johnson sticking with what he wanted to do and then executing it. And listen, it's only going to get faster. It's only going to get better as these guys do it more often and get even more conditioned as the year goes on.
And I think kudos to the players as well, because Coach Johnson can implement it, but if they don't pick it up fast, if they don't regurgitate it and be able to execute it quickly, then they don't really have the exacts. They're not on the same page. Sure. And so it's both player and coaches. I think that right now there's a great synergy, and that's why you see that 2-0 start to the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Some non-region plays, games, I should say, also taking center stage, and a top 10 matchup to, again, non-region, Gulf Shores, the reigning, I'm going to start this one back over. We were watching the plays a little bit ago, but the reigning Class 5A state champs at MGM, and Zach Golson, Mark Hudspeth, obviously ready to battle this one out, and Shondell Harris really doing impressive things here with his arm.
Yeah, he's a guy that obviously had to move to quarterback. He was kind of an athlete last year, moved to quarterback, and you're seeing those beautiful throws. This is reminiscent of what they were able to do last year, kind of beat you vertically, beat you deep, and that's exactly what Shondell Harris brings us this year as well.
And look at this, you guys. Fantastic. Okay, Ronnie Royal a year ago was impressive for Gulf Shores, and Colin Wilson has picked up right where he left off. This play, I'm going to rewind it, in a quarterback.
Takes a direct
reading
snap.
Everything. And just the juke here is so impressive. His speed, his elusiveness, getting into the end zone, and that actually gave Gulf Shores a 7-6 lead on the road in this game. MGM, battling it out, and it went down to the wire. That play was impressive. This one also impressive. I didn't know this even happened until we saw it on the air, and I was like, wow.
Yeah,
he just knocked his helmet off.
And I think whenever you have teams that like to play that spread style, I think sometimes they get an unfair reputation of being not as physical. Well, that shows you right there. Yeah. They get into the red zone. Yeah. This MGM team is physical.
Yeah, and they're out fired up too. And if you saw off the top, you could obviously see the new field, the new turf over there. Zach Golson is really building something special. So is Mark Hudspeth. So kudos to both teams, and kudos to both coaches for scheduling this game, because a lot of teams won't schedule games like this. Right. A lot of teams are like, okay, MGM knows they were talented. Obviously, Gulf Shores was talented. They won a state title.
Right.
But to go and say, all right, we're going to go play the best in their classification from a year ago in this area and have that matchup, that's a big deal to pull the trigger on that, because a lot of times you'll see coaches go schedule somebody who's maybe an easy dub, or you would want to have early injuries. Those teams, they're going to need some ice baths and some Tylenols after that.
Right. When you schedule the two games that they've scheduled, Choctawhatchee with Gulf Shores and MGM, and then MGM also last week playing its pace, and then you play each other in week 2, you are right, because you can very easily go 0-2 to start the season, or very easily go 1-1 or 2-0. And I think that this is kind of proof positive that, if you trust your guys, if you trust the guys in your locker room, and you trust your program, then you aren't scared to face some of the best. And I think both Zach Golson and Coach Mark Hudspeth really deserve a hat's tip to the way they started their season. And I know both teams are really primed to dive deep into their tough regions. Totally
agree. As we know, everyone will jump into region play next week. All right, another non-region matchup over in West Mobile, as Fairhope made the lengthy trip all the way to Faith Academy. So let's take a look at this one here. And as we know, several Faith Academy players left kind of late in the year. And I think that you're seeing that maybe play out a little bit in this game. And Fairhope also looking to answer and respond after that first week 1 loss.
Yeah, 42-6 was the loss last week. So obviously looking to rectify that. And Faith Academy, as you said, new leaders have to step up with some of the guys that were in their locker room a few weeks ago, now at other places. And so I think with Fairhope, something to prove, I think, and going out back to Mobile and before they dive into Region 1 play coming up next week. But hats off to both these coaches, for Coach Speakman and Coach Carter, for being able to get this game. I think both teams can really use a nice, strong test here, and we saw a great game there as Fairhope won it in a shutout. Yeah,
for sure. Jumping back into region play in Class 5A, last year, LaFleur versus UMS was a pretty big defensive battle. I was out at that game, and back and forth affair. I think they were knotted at zeros at halftime. And this today's game, pretty close to that, at least early on in this one, out at UMS. Going to pull these highlights up and the music as well. I'm going to bring that down slightly. But here's UMS Wright, obviously, at home today. Welcoming in LaFleur, and both teams hoping for a bounce back from week 1, and UMS would eventually get it. Check out the double pass here. What a play call. I love this. And the execution to be able to get that done. Want to shout out the guys, Max Fowler to Bo Willis, Denton Elliott into the end zone to take a 7-0 lead. But the Rattlers weren't going away either.
Yeah, you need that juice to really get you started. But we saw it last week that it obviously played a really tough Fairfield team. Came back this week, played really tough against UMS Wright. And they have some really talented guys. Antonio Gibbs, the South Alabama commit. There you see another one of their top players, and D'Antonio Lejeune coming up with the reception. Brought down just short of the goal line there. But these are two coaches that know that respect each other. Renardo Jackson said at Mobile County Media Days that he has the ultimate respect for Coach Terry Curtis and considers him one of his mentors. And it's great to see both those teams really fighting hard, playing hard, a really competitive game once again.
Yeah, and the final in that game, did we already say that one?
UMS
25-6. Yep, right. So UMS gets the victory there. Viger proved last weekend, I should say, because the game was on Saturday at Ladd Stadium. In the Battle of Pritchard, that they were going to be a problem. Yeah. Not only probably here in Class 5A, but probably statewide. Yeah. Obviously, John McKenzie back as the head coach of the Wolfpack team. Sammy Dunn transfers over at quarterback from Bayside Academy. Right. And that looked really, really impressive last week. And now they jump up to play a Class 7A school in Tuscaloosa County, and looking also very impressive in week 2, Gerhard.
Answering all challenges. You work on a short week because, like you mentioned, they played on Saturday last week. Yep. New coach, new quarterback, and even a new jersey number we will show you as one of their top players.
This was one of those things behind the scenes, pulling back the curtain. Now, first of all, Tuscaloosa County scores first here. I think it was actually 7-3 at that point. But this is one of those deals where I'm trying to figure out who is this kid. Behind the scenes work, guys. And I'm like yelling at the TV station and throughout the station, who is 17? Who is 17?
We cannot find a 17 on the roster.
Okay. Well, here's the deal. There's only so many guys that can run like this, okay? So when we looked at it upon further review, I'm like, dude, that's Green Pants.
Yeah.
So I called some of my sources, and it is Green Pants. He's wearing 17, so there's an issue with his number 1 jersey. There's not a lot of guys that can do that sort of move, whatever it is that he does there. That cutback. I mean, the dude can fly.
I love our mentality because you go process of elimination. Okay, hey, look, there's only so many people who can run that fast. Yeah. Maybe they pulled a Superman and they're just wearing a different cape. Yeah, and that's exactly what Carlos Benjamin goes from 1 to 17.
Maybe he should stick with 17. I mean, listen, man, number 1 obviously is a really good number. We didn't even get to this. We didn't even get to the defensive effort here from Viger. So check that out. Fantastic interception there, but. So Viger rolls into this game. They pick up the big win, and that's a big deal. I mean, when you go and play a 7-18, even though they're coming all the way from Tuscaloosa County to play here, because nobody else around here wants to play you because they know that you're going to be very good. Right. So you have to go to a team like Tuscaloosa County to ask them to come play and beat a 7A school. Man, that's a significant win for them there in week 2 before they get into region play, of course.
Very impressive. I think with all these non-region games, it's kind of twofold. If you're struggling, you obviously want to go and get some wins. Mm-hmm. And if you're a team that's contending, you want to have a playoff kind of atmosphere, a playoff kind of team, and a real test for the start of your region run. Yep. I think this was the case of the latter. This was the case of Tuscaloosa County coming in. Big team, really, really deep team. I know they have a new head coach in Miles Holcomb over there, but they've done a really good job over the last few years to being able to kind of put things together. But hats off to Coach McKenzie and Viger coming up with the W.
Yeah, I want to get to some of your Facebook comments really quick. And please join us in this conversation, guys, because we can see the comments. We appreciate everyone that has been live with us throughout the last few minutes. We have a couple of questions. How did MGM play? MGM beat Gulf Shores in a knockdown, drag-out fight. We showed those highlights just a moment ago. But very, very impressive play by both sides. Really, Colin Wilson, I think, went for over 300 yards in the first half.
Right.
That's the Gulf Shores running back. And equally impressive was the Vikings, who has Shondell Harris stepping into that quarterback role.
Yeah, I think both coaches know the guys are going to lean on this year. We talked about both these guys from 33 teams in 33 days. Coach Mark Hudspeth knew that one of his main guys that he will rely on is Colin Wilson. He came to play today. Same thing with Shondell Harris when we talked with MGM earlier in the spring. So I think both these teams are really starting to get their feet wet in the season. MGM has a really big, really good offensive line. I think you saw that in the protection today.
Yes.
And it's great to see how both teams will respond from here on out. So Sean, I'm telling you, if you're an MGM fan out there, you're excited. The boys are looking good right now.
Yes, they absolutely are, no doubt. How did Baker play? Baker beat Alma Bryant, a shutout win. The last time that Baker had a shutout was in 2021, also Alma Bryant. So a big win for Juan Johnson and the Hornets getting it done. Let's keep it moving here. Continue with the questions, and we will continue to answer them as we get to our Facebook comments. Let's head out to Cottage Hill, where the Warriors trying to bounce back, and Satsuma trying to go 2-0. The Gators coming to town.
Yeah, this is a really interesting contest, another non-region matchup. Cottage Hill looked solid last week, found some ways that they can improve going into this week. Andrew White, he scored a touchdown last week, another one this week, a big play there. And Satsuma, their fans coming out strong over to the Mobile area, but then another huge play here. This is Caleb Metzner. He had a great catch last week, a nice play from their quarterback and Tootle, and got a nice run there, and then a little bit later on, he would score a touchdown. And so the highlights here are a little deceptive because there's a lot of great Cottage Hill, even though Satsuma ended up coming out with the win. And this one, 30-18 was the final score. I think, but a good showing here, I think, by both teams, especially in the second half by Satsuma.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Satsuma going 2-0, that's a big deal. For that team. I mean, there was, I think they won 5 games a year ago.
Right.
You obviously knew that Coach Jordan in his second year was going to be even more impressive, and I feel like that's kind of coming to fruition now.
I think the 2 words were next step. They just wanted to take that next step going into this year, and you mentioned it. 1 win to 5 wins, and now so far 2-0 on that next run as they go up.
Yep, absolutely. Got some comments here from Daniel Lombard that Spanish Fort 1 and 2 overtimes.
Wow.
Okay, so again, understand that Gerhard and I, just peeling back the curtain as we're going to probably do every week regarding fifth quarter. I mean, we're getting information. There's about 25 people that work on this show, and so gathering information from social media, from our photographers who are in the field, our producers, directors. I mean, there's so many people that are hands-on, people in the web department. Everyone does a really, really great job, and so we get as accurate and as good of information as we can. We knew it was in overtime, but to hear that it was 2 overtimes, looks like a field goal won it there. Man, what a knockdown drag out there between 2 teams that are so hard-nosed year in and year out and really battling, as we know, for every single win in 6A Region 1, because it's such an impossible region.
It's so hard, and I think defense is the name of the game. And defense being able to run the football. And I know sometimes in 2024 that can get lost a little bit because everybody's so used to these high-scoring games and these spread offenses. But when you think about the fact that they played, obviously 4 quarters of regulation, and then 2 quarters where the ball is like essentially on the inside the red zone, and you only have a 24-21 football game, it shows you that those defenses really stepped up. And obviously, like we said earlier, I think that a lot of people thought that Spanish Fort, given their win last week, might be able to come in there and roll. But obviously another tight football game, and we expect a lot of those in this region.
Yep. Daniel Lombard says that Theodore fumbled on 1st and 10 in the second overtime. So that would do it. I assume that means that Spanish Fort would have recovered. I assume that's probably what ended the game for sure. Someone pipes in and says Aiden Schamberger is my baby brother. Okay, well, he was also our Zaxby's Player of the Week. And so congratulations to Aiden Schamberger. EJ King also mentioned in the comments as well, former Faith Academy running back now over at Spanish Fort to change up his opportunity going to the college level. We talked to Coach about that last week, Coach Smith. And so huge win for Spanish Fort nonetheless. As we move forward now, we're going to head over from Theodore to St. Michael, where The Cardinals opened up their brand new stadium against John Carroll out of the Birmingham area.
Yeah, two Catholic schools getting together. No, last year we had St. Michael and McGill getting together, kind of a affectionately named Battle of the Catholics. This is kind of a quasi-semi-battle of the Catholic schools.
I was worried if we were allowed to say that or not, but then I'm like, okay.
But everybody said it out.
Everyone was saying it, and so I'm like, you know what? Okay, we're going to say it too.
That's right.
We're not going to get in trouble, right?
Right. The Cavaliers got off to a nice start there. You saw Benjamin Barnes with the touchdown run a little bit later on.
This year was a big special teams play here. Heads up play that didn't actually make our air, but kudos to our photographer for being Johnny on the spot here. Lee Atherton's doing a great job. Check this out. It's plays like this, as Philip Rivers well knows, after 20 years in the NFL, however long he played, heads up play. And kudos to these guys, well coached. You could tell. It's kind of an awkward kick. 36 there for John Carroll, makes a mistake, and it's recovered. And, it's just those type of momentum shifters that really make the difference. And later in the game, man, this is one of our plays of the week, and for good reason.
Yeah, it certainly is. This is Gunnar Rivers once again just going up top. And this is a phenomenal catch here by Brody Jones. Those two hooked up for a couple of big plays last week, and there you see him rocking the baby. Brody Jones.
I didn't even know you could celebrate. I love the celebrations.
They're getting away with a little bit more than they used to back in the day. I kind of like it. Oh, I kind of like it, man.
I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's absolutely great. As long as we're not doing anything that's gonna be totally offensive or something like that.
Celebrate with your team.
Something that's slightly offensive.
Celebrate with your team. As long as it's with your team, and maybe a tiny bit to your opponent. That's maybe indirect to your opponent.
If I hit somebody and I took their helmet off, if you think I'm not gonna stand over them, I love team. I love that guys are coached though to go celebrate with him and get him away from the guy that he's standing over in that moment. Get away from the other team.
Keep the energy, but don't get us penalized 15 yards.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. If you're just tuning in, guys, fifth quarter extra. Thanks for tuning in and staying with us here this evening. Obviously, this is kind of an extension of the show that we do here at WKRG News 5. Gerhard Mathangani, Simone Eli, recapping week 2 of the high school football season. And boy, was it a good one. Want to keep things moving here as Daphne, the Trojans, beat McGill-Tulane in week 1. Now they go to Pensacola and play Pine Forest, looking to improve to 2-0 under Kenny King.
Yeah, this is a nice matchup here between two really good football teams. In the second quarter, I'll tell you what, Daphne's special teams comes up big here. They already have a field goal made, and this is a muffed punt, I should say, and recovered there by Bradley Thomas for Daphne. So a big special teams play there, and then a little bit later on they would have another one. Show you here in just a moment. But another big play here for Pine Forest, looking to get the interception, comes up just short. But then another big special teams play for the Daphne Trojans, as this would be Edric Williams that would come up with the block punt here inside the 10-yard line, and that's another one that sets up another touchdown for Daphne. When we talk about playing complementary football, our coaches talk about that, where your offense and your defense and your special teams are basically synergized, and when your defense can set up your special teams and your special teams can set up your offense in good field position, that's exactly what happened there.
All three phases there, Nick Saban.
Working together. Say it takes 2 of 3 to win, 3 of 3 to dominate, and that's what Daphne did.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I have some comments here. Appreciate everyone tuning in. T.R. Miller did get a huge win over Strawn, 40-7, the final in that from that game. We have several scores from some games we weren't able to send our crew to. Again, we have several people that work on this show. Obviously, that number eventually comes to an end and taps out, and so we try to get as many scores as we can on the ticker of our shows, and then also in some full screens there at the end of the show. Jackson, the number 1 ranked team in 4A, bounced back in a big way, 42-20. Over Demopolis, who is always a very strong program for sure. And then St. Luke's, a shutout victory over Marengo, 22-0 in that game. But I would be remiss to not show you maybe the highlight of the night, guys. I think that, listen, this maybe not this play, but this was maybe the win of the night, so to speak. And it goes to Bayshore Christian. And we have some music bumping on this one. That's how excited we are about this play, guys. But Bayshore Christian, in their first ever varsity game, goes to McIntosh, pulls off a big dub. Let me get the final on that, 28-7 maybe. Yeah, 28-7. The Eagles, Coach Lazenby, legendary Coach Lazenby, gets the big victory here as Bayshore begins their first ever varsity slate. Congratulations to Bayshore Christian. We have seen the Eagles do huge things, of course, on the baseball field with a couple state titles, and now they transition to the football field, and all the same athletes. I mean, when you're playing that level of sports, you got guys I mean, you got guys that might be, playing volleyball too. I mean, they're playing every sport. They throw everybody in. They throw everybody in everything. Do cheer. Do football. Actually, do it in the same night. Like
play the drums. Sell the
at
hot
halftime.
dogs.
Literally sell the hot dog.
But
the concession stand, yeah.
But I do think there's
and
something
drive the bus home with the victory.
with the W, with
Yeah.
the first W in program history. Hey,
Yeah.
listen, only one team could do that. It's the very first team.
Yep.
This team was able to get it done, score the first win of the program in program history. But you knock on something that I think is kind of overarching with this program. You mentioned the baseball success. I think that this football team, they came in with a lot of expectations because they're winners. They understand what it takes to win, and they were able to get a big win tonight. And I think a lot of that internal belief
Yes.
that comes from other sports
Yep.
that kind of bled in from
Success
baseball.
breeds success.
It certainly does. And
Yep.
congratulations to Coach Lazenby. Here, a short little, very, very short 20-second story. Coach Lazenby actually coached a team that I played against Benjamin Russell back in the day. We played each other in state championship games. So
Yeah, how did those end up, by the way?
We beat Coach Lazenby. Sorry, Coach.
How many
I
times
know you're
how many
enjoying
times
your
I've had
win.
to hear this. I had to hear this more than one time in my life,
but,
by the way.
but I got a chance to catch up with him. He's a fantastic coach. He's been doing
He
it for a
is,
long
yep.
time and still has the energy to lead a program to its first win ever. Congratulations to the Eagles.
Yep, absolutely. If you're just tuning in, again, this is Fifth Quarter Extra. Gerhard Mathangani, Simone Eli joining you. Just had somebody ask, how did Williamson fare? They beat Wayne County in dominant fashion. Okay, how about a 52-0 win over Booker T. Washington in week 1, and then the Lions go on the road, I think like in Mississippi, to win
That's right.
44-6.
Yeah, another huge game. And I think this is a kind of marquee of what we talked about during the spring with this team. A lot of defensive stars back. Taj Overton, the Arkansas commit, back with this team in the secondary. I think about 8 or 9 starters from last year's team. And that's the side of the ball that Coach Antonio Coleman really loves, being able to play strong defense. But you paired that with the kind of offense that they're playing right now.
No
and I know
doubt.
last week they had some pick sixes and some fumble recoveries for
We
touchdowns.
had about every single one of them, too.
So I know we did. So shout out to Mason.
Yeah.
So their defense is scoring points as well. And when you pair that with the offense, so far 2 for 2 playing out of state teams. Went to Florida last week, or played a Florida team last week over at Ladd. This week Wayne County 2 for 2 for Coach Coleman and the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, if you didn't catch the top of the show, our game of the week was the battle for the cannon. And for the 10th straight year, let's show it to you one more time. The cannon is orange. Huge win for the Yellow Jackets.
This is another great tradition of high school football, but they had to augment it a little bit. Now, let's just say that you are from the Gulf Coast and you've left for a couple of years, you came back, and you're like, what in the world cannon is this? So let's explain to you.
Yeah.
So last couple of years, the city ordinances did not let them paint the one in Midtown downtown. So last year, McGill-Tulane bought their own cannon. They painted it on the baseball
They
field.
said, listen, you can take the cannon. We're just going to get our own cannons. That's what they did.
They bought their own cannon, and they painted it orange for
Yeah.
the 10th straight
I
year.
did text the athletic director, Bill Griffin, earlier, and I said, it was like, this is definitely one of those don't do this anti like sports person. I played sports. I should know better than this, but I texted him sometime like this like third quarter. It's like, hey, where can I send my photographer to get some video of y'all painting the cannon? Or excuse me, where can I get some? Let me read exactly. Hey, Bill, where can my photographer go to grab some cannon celebration? He said, hopefully not Murphy. No, they're up, I don't know, maybe 2 touchdowns in the second half. That's no disrespect to Murphy. It's not like that.
No,
but I
it's
did
not.
appreciate his sense of humor there a little bit. And then, of course, we caught them over at the school with their own cannon. But listen, man, the cannon is the cannon. And you know what, though? I'm glad that they're able to continue that tradition because that's something that's going back to like 1935, I think, is what we looked at.
And all these young kids, I mean, they
want their
if
moment,
sophomores, juniors, seniors, they've known one tradition, and that's painting the regular cannon outside of last year. So for them to still have their moment, you saw the joy on all of their faces, and that's what brings football together. I was able to go out there and talk to the people of the student section, and they were just fired up for this football game, and they support their sports all across the board really well, but football obviously had a nice contingent over at Ladd Stadium today, and glad to see they're able to keep that tradition going.
For sure. I want to get to one more question here. I had someone ask, what do I think of Faith Academy's new coach, Eric Speakman? Known him for a really long time. He's done a lot of really big things at a big level.
Right.
Hang with that team, guys.
Yes.
I mean, listen, right now they are reshuffling the deck, so to speak. They had some guys leave late in the year,
Right.
Obviously, who are huge playmakers now for different teams. And so, I mean, stick with them. I mean, Eric Speakman's a really, really good coach. He's won at a very high level. And so, it's just a matter of time. But you got to get there. When you
Right.
practice all offseason with certain guys who are in your personnel who are not just just some chumps. I mean, these are your
Right.
main playmakers. You got to figure out on both sides of the ball what you're going to do moving forward.
Yeah, Coach Beekman, he's been in the game for a really long time. He actually started here on Coach Terry Curtis's staff, so he understands what great football looks like.
Yep.
He went to Opelika, had a very successful run, both as an assistant coach and as a head coach. And when he first moved here, he had to go back and forth for a long time. Showed you his dedication to go from Opelika back to Mobile. He had to travel, put a lot of miles on his vehicle, basically slept in his office for a few days, and finally moved in here. So he's committed. And as Simone said, I agree. Just stick with this program, stick with his coach, because he understands winning football, and two games don't make a season. This is a football team that I think
one game,
will
and that was our first game.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah. So listen, I mean, and that's the first game. Everyone gets kind of a pass on the first game for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you're really trying to figure things out, but especially when it comes to personnel. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Fifth Quarter Extra. We're gonna do this every single Friday, right when we get off the air for fifth quarter. It's actually it's our funnest kind of television that we've gotten to do, pseudo television here in the live stream new era of media, so to speak. But it really gives us an opportunity to showcase what it really is behind the scenes effort of fifth quarter on the air, all of the work that goes into it. So kudos to all of our photographers. I mean, we had 15 people out shooting games, and we had just as many people behind the scenes here in the building working on getting scores and really bringing you the best high school football coverage along the Gulf Coast. We argue the best coverage in the Southeast. And so we're really proud of it. We like to bring you this kind of extra tidbit of what it's like, talk some knowledge, and then preview what's ahead too. So week 3 is already on the horizon. We can enjoy these wins and these losses for 24 hours, right? Coach Saban says. And not to mention college football is tomorrow, so everyone's going to forget about high school at least for 24 hours.
Yeah, they say, as they said, the clock's ticking for next week, but all football fans are geared up, fired up for tomorrow. If you're Alabama, Auburn, any team out of the SEC, South plays tomorrow. Should be a whole lot of fun. And not to mention a lot of these college guys that were once high school stars on the Thursday, Friday night lights who will be playing tomorrow. I know a lot of people have a lot of interest in Saturday.
Yeah, cannot wait for sure. Looking forward to that. South will kick off at 4. Alabama is at 6, and then Auburn is at 6:30. Yes, so Gerhard will have the recap of those games tomorrow here on News 5. We will join you on Wednesday for Sports 5 Talk as well to look at all the games and look ahead as well. So, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to Fifth Quarter Extra. For Gerhard, Summer Poole, our producer, filling in for Pat tonight. We appreciate you. I'm Simone Eli, and we will see you next week.